Thank you for listening to the Speaking Out on Sex Abuse podcast with host Clara and Jimmy Hinton. If you're new to the podcast, please subscribe and share so you never miss an episode. Search for us on your favorite podcast app, or you can find the podcast on jimmyhinton.org and findingahealingplace.com. Please rate our show, subscribe, and share so we can spread the word. If you would like to support us and get exclusive rewards, go to patreon.com/speakingout. Find a tier that best fits you and join as a patron of the podcast. Now let's get into the show. Welcome to this week's podcast with host Jimmy Hinton.
And Jimmy's mom, Clara.
This episode, let me back up. Patrons, thank you. Always got to thank our patrons.
Yes.
They make this podcast possible and they make our life sane.
That's questionable, Jimmy, the sane part.
Well,
but we
define sane,
yes,
right?
We do appreciate our people. We call you our people, our tribe. You are our people who keep this podcast going. Thank you so much. Yes.
So this episode 159, Are My Kids Safe Online checklist. This one hits really close to home, I think, for all of us because technology is changing so rapidly. There is a smartphone in the hands of so many young people. Computers, tablets, all kinds of devices. That is an open window into their privacy, into their room, into their lives. And it's not getting better. Things have really advanced even in the last 5 years. And how fast technology is progressing it's frightening.
It's kind of funny, but it's not. I was telling Jimmy just before this podcast, I finally traded in my 17-year-old vehicle, and I got a used one, but I sat in the driver's seat with a gentleman who was selling me the car, and I didn't know how to start the car. It's keyless.
They're very different.
It's very different. I knew nothing how to work the panel. I didn't know anything because everything's computerized. Mm-hmm. And he kept reminding me, you probably don't know this, and this, as he's pointing, touching things, and I don't. I will have to learn all of that. Ask a 5 or 6 year old, they'll get it like that.
Yeah.
Why? Because they're used to playing the video games. They're used to seeing, TVs are different now. I don't even know how to work a TV, to be honest with you. I don't know how to do all of the changing of everything, but our kids do.
Kids are definitely very tech savvy.
They sure are.
And, which makes it harder for us to monitor what they're doing.
Absolutely.
And put various firewalls up because kids know how to get around it. So, here's our checklist. And again, these lists are not exhaustive, but we think this is a pretty good place to start. We have 6 of these written down, but we could probably fill 5 pages and still not even touch the tip of the iceberg.
Oh, yeah.
So it's a good start, but there's always more that you can do. Number 1, do you have an open room policy? I am of the firm belief that devices should not be used in privacy among minor children. They should be used in public family areas only, and not taken into a private corner of a room or a room where the door is shut.
I agree so much. I
just
really
shouldn't
do.
happen.
Yeah, right.
Right. And this gets incredibly tricky, maybe even impossible for kids that are given smartphones because it's so hard in reality to monitor them. In theory, it's great because there are all these parental controls and, you have different firewalls and all this stuff. But the reality is, like we said, kids know their way around these devices.
They know. Oh, my goodness, yes. I asked one of my grandkids yesterday to program in a song or something. I don't know how to use the radio, I'll be honest with you, in the car. It was like boom, 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 boom. There you go. And I said, how did you know that? He said, I don't know. It just did.
Yeah.
Well, they know.
Yeah.
They know.
Well, it reminds me of a friend of mine who works at a state prison talked about the genius idea of our state government to put in the prisons smart devices, tablets, but they were going to restrict them. They put like these heavy firewalls, and he said literally within minutes of those tablets being in the hands of these inmates, they got around the firewall and they were looking at porn.
Absolutely. How do I know?
Within minutes.
I was teaching in both of our prisons, and what were they saving their money for? Tablets.
Yeah.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And it was a joke. What all,
Right.
When I would be in the room, it was a joke, them talking about what they could find on their tablets. And I'm thinking, I'd have no clue how to do that. But they do.
Yep, they sure do.
Yeah.
They'll figure it out.
Absolutely.
But kids are that way too.
Yeah.
I mean, they just grew up in a digital era, and they know how to get it. Firewalls and parental controls mean very little these days.
Yep.
And I just want to throw this in here along these lines. There are great alternatives to smartphones for kids. Our kids don't have smartphones, nor will they have smartphones probably until they're 16, 17 years old. And the reason is that it's too easy for them to access
everything,
and for other people to have an open window into our kids' lives. We don't want it.
Right.
So one of the things that we use for our daughter, and she loves it, it's called a relay, and it's a walkie that it's attached to a cell service, and it also has GPS tracking. So when she takes her relay out, we get to program who she talks to.
Oh,
so right now it's just us. It's just parents, and she's only had it for about a month. And she says, "Hey, I want to walk up the road," and which I mean is literally across the field from us and up the road just a little bit. But I want to walk up to the softball field and meet with my friends. Great, take your relay, and she'll take it, and she just automatically does it. But she checks in with us, and she'll say, "Hey, I'm just checking in, just letting you know I'm okay."
I have a quick question. What happens? That's great because you know a lot of technology. How do parents who don't know how to do this, where can they go to get help?
Yeah, you can just look up. I mean, that one, they probably have a couple more that are like it. I'm not overly pleased with some of the features, or the lack of features, but it's literally just a little cube, and it has one big button in the middle. It's called Relay. You just go to relay.com. I think it's relay.com. And it's $10 a month. Super cheap.
Right.
You can download music to the device so she can have her own playlist. You create a playlist, so she can have music where she goes.
Okay.
Really easy to find, and it takes away the screen. There is no screen. It doesn't exist.
That is great.
Yeah.
I love
because
that.
a kid doesn't need a screen for you to communicate with them.
Right.
Some parents try to go the track phone route, and they're like, well, I'll get my kid a track phone. Well, the problem with the track phone is it's still a smartphone.
Right.
They still have access to the internet. They still have data.
Correct. Yeah.
With this, there literally is no screen. It's just a little cube.
I love that idea, Jimmy.
It has a 911 feature that when you set it up, it's actually directly tied to your device. So if they push the button 5 times, it automatically sends you an SOS.
Nice.
And it opens up the app on your phone, and it ties you to 911, where all you have to do is hit a button, and you're linked, and they're linked. Your child is linked to the 911 operator.
Okay, that's great. That's super.
In the case of a kidnapping or a medical emergency or anything like that, they can go to SOS mode.
Yeah, that's a good bit of information to have. There are
alternatives to smartphones. You don't have to put a smartphone into the hands of your kid to communicate with them. Number 2, do you have filters and restrictions in place? For example, internet browsers on all of our kids' devices are permanently disabled.
That's smart.
There is no there is no internet browsing.
Smart. Yes.
That includes a YouTube app. That's disabled on all of our kids' Android devices. They don't have access to internet, well, I say internet, to web browsers. So they can't do Google searches. They can't do anything because there is no internet browser. We disabled them. And we told our kids.
Yeah, that's great.
If you want to use the internet, you use our computers and let us know that you want to search for something. We let them use our phones. They search on my phone, my wife's phone, or a computer.
And then, of course, you have the history so you can see what they're searching.
But they're in front of us when they do it.
They're right there. Right.
Yeah.
Perfect.
So, yeah, you've got to put filters and restrictions in place. Even though they find ways around it, you still put them in place.
I think that's important for our kids to know also that you care enough that it's not like handing a child a phone and saying, here.
I think it's just so dangerous when you do that.
Yeah, it is. Yeah. But I've seen parent upon parent upon parent do that and just say, I give up. Here's the phone. Take it.
That becomes the babysitter.
It is. And it's the TV, it's communication, it's games, it's everything, it's trouble.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Well, that leads to the next number 3. Do you know what apps they're using? And I just have a list of apps that are some of the most dangerous. But, I mean, this list grows every single day because every day there are hundreds of new apps that are released. But Snapchat, that is one of the biggest apps for exploitation of children, sexual exploitation, kids that go missing, et cetera, et cetera. Missing and exploited children, sending explicit photos and videos to each other because Snapchat, they supposedly disappear after time. Turns out they never fully disappear.
I've never
on
used
your device.
it. I never understood the whole concept of it. I just know it's a quick picture and then supposedly
never had
goes
Snapchat
away.
and never had any desire to.
Right.
Facebook Messenger, lots and lots and lots of exploitation of children on Facebook Messenger. Zoomerang, Instagram. I was scrolling Instagram the other day, just going through Reels, and every now and then a video of a little kid twerking or doing something that they saw mom doing appears on Instagram. That's not an app for kids, but they have them.
Right.
TikTok, same thing. Unbelievable what kids are doing on TikTok. Parler, Game Pigeon, Chatmaster, Among Us. These are like private texting apps.
I thought these were dating sites. I didn't even know. I honestly, I haven't heard of a lot of these.
YouTube. YouTube is awful. YouTube Kids. They're pedophiles that they find ways to get around the algorithms, and they're putting explicit content mixed in a video on Mickey Mouse. YouTube Kids is a really big offender. Telenym, that's an anonymous texting app. So you don't really know who you're texting to. It's like you're texting strangers.
That's a terrible thing.
It's so stupid.
It's terrible, right.
But kids love it. Big O Live, IMVU, House Party, Tinder. Tinder is a dating app.
Yeah.
Ask FM. VSCO is a photo app where you can like draw and put different filters on. You can't turn off, from my knowledge. You either can't turn it off or by default it has the location history on.
Wow.
So pedophiles, they look at all these little pictures, and of course little kids are putting skimpy pictures of themselves because they're being asked to.
Right.
Well, it has your location history. They can literally pinpoint the place that picture was taken by the GPS information that's embedded in that photograph. Whisper, another private texting app or video app, one or the other. Look, and Tumblr. These are among the biggest culprits for exploitation and cyberbullying of kids. I recommend that you go to NCMEC's website, the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children. They have really up-to-date information. Their website is missingkids.org. They have a printout for parents on keeping your kids safe online.
And that's important to have. Yeah, so vitally important for parents.
I mean, honestly, like the number of apps that are coming out, and you can add or delete an app in 15 seconds on your
I was
phone.
going to say seconds. Oh, yeah.
So,
Yeah.
There are all these secret apps, the calculator apps for that aren't really calculators. They work as a calculator, but then you put a certain code in, and that opens it up to a private folder within your phone. People store explicit images and videos within those apps. So check your kids' devices and find out what every single app is that's on
Life
that.
was simpler before, wasn't it,
I
Jimmy?
know. It really was.
Very much simpler. It really, really was.
Yeah. I mean, it's getting harder and harder and harder to keep our kids safe. And we're not helping by putting all these devices in the hands of our kids.
And not just physically safe, but once a child sees a visual picture of porn or a visual picture of a child being abused, a visual picture of, any of this ugly, I call it ugly and evil stuff. That picture can't be erased.
Right.
That picture is
it
there.
sticks with you.
And it changes something. And the more you see those pictures, the more that becomes normalized. Yeah. And I think it's just nature to be curious as a child, especially. You're curious to see what's going on, and you hear kids talking about it. It's awful hard to be a parent right now and to keep reins on your child. It truly is.
I forget what it is. The average age that children see pornography for the first time now is, I think it's 9 years old. It's 9 or 10 years old. But, imagine a kid who's not yet hit puberty, who doesn't know or understand or have the capacity to understand about what sex is. They're seeing not only pornography, but they're seeing, all the brutal stuff. I probably can't say it or we'll get filtered on YouTube, but the genres of pornography are extremely violent, graphic, degrading, dehumanizing, and they're just awful. So they're not only is their first experience with sex, seeing sex at a really young age, but it's this really twisted, violent,
it's so distorted. It's so far away
scenes of sex
from what God wanted us to experience and see, that I think it's hard to then bring it back and get the picture of what it should be once you've seen the distorted picture. Yeah. Very hard.
Number 4, do you do routine device checks? Do you do random checks on your kids' devices? Do you check the apps? Do you check for apps? Do you go deep into the phone, look for hidden apps? Do you look at the phone's history? Do you go into the file manager and dig in the files and make sure that there are no explicit photos or videos or anything like that? Do you do random spot checks on your kids' devices? And I don't recommend, this is just me personally, I don't recommend just grabbing your kid's device and being like, I'm going to check it and see what's on it. Let your kid know. Communicate and tell your kid, hey, just so you know, like, we're doing random spot checks, and that could happen anytime.
Right. And do it. Do the spot checks and follow through.
Right.
Yeah, follow through. And let the child know why. You're not being a mean parent. You're a parent who loves that child.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. Number 5, simple but effective. Do you have device activity mirrored to your own device? Do you get a record? Do you get a receipt?
I think that's really important.
Of everything that your child's device is doing to the best of its ability. So, for example, the one thing that we do, so our kids don't have phones, I told you. They don't have smartphones, but we want them to still be able to call and talk to their friends and and to us. So when we're out, like when you babysit our kids, we want them to be able to contact us.
If they say, "Hey, Grandma's really treating me mean.
Grandma's twisting she's giving us the key."
Yes. Oh, yes.
My ear is still messed up from
from
getting the key.
That's the way I punished my children, by the way. I got their attention by twisting their little ears, and now I'll be cited as a child abuser, probably.
Yeah, you will.
Yeah.
You're awful.
Oh, your ears look plenty good. They're still there.
So what we do, I think we talked about this on another podcast, or maybe it was an exclusive, but what we do is... it's a lot of workarounds and it's a lot of work to figure it out. But like our daughter, she has the walkie, so she can contact us. She can go out, have a little bit of freedom, be able to go out, be with her friends. But that doesn't work for a device that's at home attached to the internet.
Right.
So we wanted cell service that's voice over IP. It's on the internet. So what we did is we created, on our accounts, we created a fake Google number. Google has the Google Voice numbers.
Right.
And then we tied that into the Hangouts app. And also, I think it's called Google Voice. There's another app. So we kind of had to integrate it into two different apps. So our daughter is able to both do voice calls and text messaging when she's on Wi-Fi internet.
Right.
Now... that would be dangerous by itself. So what we do is we're also able to control her contact list.
Right.
That still would be dangerous because there are ways to get around that. So the other thing is the text message. Every single text message that she has, I get an email. And it gives me the full content of those text messages.
That's right. That's how it
tells
should
me who
be.
it is.
That's how it should be. She's a child.
Right.
Yes, she's a child.
And she knows this.
Yes.
She knows.
Yes.
And in the couple years that she's had a phone number, she's been, texting, and it's not obsessively. We also limit time, obviously. But there has never once been a text message that I got that was cause for concern. Never once.
Wow. Right.
But I do read every single one.
Should.
Literally every single text message
should.
that she gets, I read them.
Yeah.
Every one.
You're the parent.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Number 5, do you have... we already did number 5.
Right.
Number 6. Last but not least. Do you know who your kids' friends are? And do you have access to restrict and monitor those friends? Really important. Cyberbullying is probably at the top of the list of the number one thing that causes anxiety, panic attacks, depression, and suicide among young people. Cyberbullying is at the top of the list.
Right. I was hoping we would add the suicide. That's huge. That is the death rate because of cyberbullying is enormous. Really
There's just too much anonymity online where people can come, they can bully, and I've read a couple studies on this, and they said part of the problem with devices and with kids is that kids feel obligated to, if they hear a ding, they have to check it. And there are kids that actually they have facilities that are detox facilities for electronics.
I believe it. And Jimmy, all this is leading to something that I think is not part of it. Well, it isn't part of this podcast, but that I've said over and over again. Phones were designed, I believe, to take the place of human interaction. And they've done a really great job of just doing that. A lot of our children do not know how to interact with each other or with their parents or with anybody. They can only do it through texting, not face-to-face talk or face-to-face talking. They're so uncomfortable. If you look in restaurants or any place like that, people of all ages actually walking down sidewalks and whatnot, you'll see them just like this, heads down, just text. And I'm thinking, why are you doing that? What happened to talking to each other? Just being able
you're right. They don't know how.
No. That is a lost art.
Yeah.
And that is really sad. It truly is.
The other thing with this too is, with all those things on this last point, knowing who your kids' friends are, man, the exploitation of kids and people who pretend they masquerade as a teenager, but they're really pedophiles.
Right.
And, they do meetups to hang out.
You and I can cite very specific cases that we know of. This isn't something that's
it happens often.
Way out there. It happens
Yeah.
Regularly all the time. And it's not something that we can just blink our eyes at. This happens. It's real.
And it happens so often it's not even able to be regulated.
Right.
There's virtually no organization that can regulate it. They're all overwhelmed. I mean,
It's too big.
I mean,
it's
again,
too
go to NCMEC's website, the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children. Go on their website and look at the statistics and look at some of the blog articles. And they talk about, they're like, this is so overwhelming. They're like, every hour we get thousands and thousands and thousands and thousands of, these are just reported images.
And those who are exploiting children know this.
Right.
Their chances of getting caught,
slim to none.
right. They know it.
Yeah.
So why not do it?
Right. Exactly right.
Why not do it? Because they know chances are they're not going to get caught.
Right. Yeah.
There's not
that's
time
exactly
to chase
right.
after them. Yeah. Or the knowledge. Time or the knowledge.
Or the resources or the money or
any of that.
NACMEC has they have so many good articles about this. I mean, it's really frightening when you actually take the time to read it and you look and you're like, holy cow, like this really, this is not something that's misconstrued. Like they have actual graphs and they put numbers out there and they're like, look, this isn't even beginning to touch the tip of the iceberg. And this is the stuff that's
scary.
being reported.
It's very scary. I think as parents, we want to give our kids things that keep them safe, which, now I hear all the time, well, my child needs a cell phone. I need to know where they are.
No, they don't need a cell phone. Find an alternative.
Yes, and I'm glad you mentioned that.
They're out there.
I am so glad you said that. And I believe in child safety. I mean, when you grew up, it was way different. It was put your kids outside.
See you at sunset. Okay, Mom. I mean, it really was about what it was like.
That. If you wreck your bike, just
good luck.
Yeah, take care. But it was like that. We didn't have to worry about these things because they weren't happening. It's a whole different world right now. And this stuff does happen, and our children are targeted. Yes. And we need to understand that. So being a good parent often means restricting some of these things.
Yeah.
We have to.
And like I said, the point's not to turn our kids, the last two episodes were former Amish and Mennonites. The point is not to make your kid Amish and, make them live in a bunker somewhere with no internet and no lights and no technology. No. We give our kids technology,
right.
But it's monitored, it's restricted. And we don't apologize for that.
Right. And that's what I love. You're not apologizing for it. You're doing it for the right reason.
And they're not messed up because they're, know.
And they know. My mom and dad love me so much that they're going to read my text messages. They're going to read who calls me.
And that's not weird to them.
It shouldn't be.
Right.
That means they love me. Yeah, right.
Yeah,
so
just,
for you parents who might be worried that your children will... fight you on this. I think not. I think all children need to know they're loved, especially by their parents. Yeah. This is really love.
Yeah.
In action.
Yeah, it really is. I mean, it's way, 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 way too easy. This is not like your kid has a chance that they'll be exploited at some time. Your kid will be exploited at some time.
And we can think my kid would never explore any of these sites. Yes, every child, given the opportunity, as curious as a child's mind is, they will eventually fall into some of this. They will see it. And we don't want our children seeing these things or being exploited.
So that'll leave us with the truth bomb. You want to leave us with our truth bomb for the day?
Okay, our truth bomb for today, June 29th, which this will be aired in July.
Yeah, a few days. Yeah,
in a few days.
Be more than a week because we have an episode next week that airs, and then this airs after that. Yeah.
Our truth bomb for July will be: we live in a technological world that is always changing. Abusers are incredibly adaptable and will walk through any open window we give them. We need to get a grip on technology for kids and put extreme limits on their usage and communicate with them often.
I'll amen that. To our listeners, we thank you for tuning into this episode, and we'll catch you next round.
Thanks again for listening to today's episode. Thank you to our patrons who make the podcast possible. If you found it helpful, please follow on Spreaker and search for the Speaking Out on Sex Abuse podcast in your favorite podcast app. Be sure to hit subscribe and rate the show. If you believe in what we do, consider supporting the podcast by becoming a patron, and check out the cool rewards our patrons receive. Share with your friends and tell the world. Join us in speaking out on sex abuse so we can change the tides and prevent abuse.